Welcome, everyone. You have joined Travel Tuesdays with Teresa. And I am Teresa Belcher. I'm the host. I'm the owner of Honeymoon Islands. And today we're doing part 2 of active travel with Backroads. I don't know if you saw part 1, so if you didn't, it would be kind of informative to pick up where we left off, because this is going to be more of a deep dive into excuse me, let me start over. Let me stop recording because. Hi, welcome to Travel Tuesdays with Teresa. Today we're focusing on active travel. It's a part 2 series with Backroads. If you didn't see part 1, I suggest you go back on our YouTube channel and look for part 1. It's kind of important that you see part 1 because today we're doing part 2 and we're picking up where we left off. We're going to do a deep dive into some of the active types of travel you can do around the world. And today my guest host is Lee Sassoon.
Very good.
Did I pronounce that right?
You did. Thank you.
Okay. Lee is my BDM, Business Development Manager for Backroads, and he's got all the scoop you need to know. So I'm going to welcome you today to the show, Lee. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate being here. It's nice for part 2, and we get to go a little bit more into some of the trips that I love and get to talk about, and a couple that I've recently experienced myself as well.
Good. So I'll let you take over. You're going to pick up, you're going to do a deep dive. You just got back from Croatia. And
that's right. Yeah, Croatia,
about...
Montenegro. Beautiful.
Wow. So the mic is all yours. Go for it.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much again for joining. My name is Lee. I'm based out of Stamford, Connecticut, and Backroads is as a business out of Berkeley, California. And I work together with the great advisors that book Backroads for all of their wonderful clients. And so I'm here today to talk a bit more about Backroads specific trip offerings, to talk about the details and what we offer throughout the week that really makes a Backroads trip unique and special. Let's go to the next slide. And I do have a 30-second video that I'm going to play. This is from Tom Hale, our current president and founder. And this is a really nice introduction as well to hear from him about it. So I'll play the video. Let me know if you can hear it. If not, we'll just move over it quickly then.
I can't hear it.
No.
No, I can't hear it.
Okay, well then I'll send a follow-up and we can have that video linked for everybody to watch, and that'll be fine. So Tom essentially is still our current president, and his daughter Avery Hale is our sales director. And together they run Backroads as a family business with a lot of amazing people involved. And it's great to see a team that has been so strong for the past 20-25 years. And Backroads has been in business since 1979, so almost 44 years now. Apologies for that, but we'll just keep moving on. And so here you could see Backroads by the numbers. So we're currently in 55 countries, 6 continents. We have over 400 itineraries now, which is amazing to see. Even more crucial to work with a travel advisor who can really be that specialist for you and find the right trip, because we have so many itineraries, so many departures. And then we have 3 distinct activity types, which we've covered in part 1: biking, walking and hiking, and multi-adventure. Multi-adventure is the one that I recently just got back from, and that was a great mix of activities throughout the week. That way you really get to experience the different aspects of Backroads. To point out for all of our trips, and I think this is something that really came to light as well during my trip, is that unlike other companies, Backroads provides e-bikes complimentary. There's no additional charge for our e-bikes. We have an incredible customized fleet of bikes. And so in addition to that e-bike, which is becoming more and more popular, I personally love the performance bike. It's a really light and easy to ride bike. And then our most popular is the touring. I would say for touring, that's great for flatter surfaces, flatter landscapes, level 1, 2, 3 trips. But as you get into level 4 or 5, that's where the performance or the e-bike really comes into play. And then we do have children's selections as well, though for each trip, we have a recommended age where a child could be on their own on the bike. So some trips that could be 7, other trips can be 9. But what's really good about this fleet is that you get a lot of different options. And for the e-bike specifically, it's one of our fastest growing trends. And in our Dolce Tempo trips, which I talked a little bit about last time as well, everyone is guaranteed an e-bike. So that is really nice. It makes a really amazing experience. And we always recommend that guests look into the different bikes that we offer. We have tutorial videos, and then you can really get an idea before going on the trip.
Can you speak a little bit about the Dolce Tempo trips? Because I think that would be very appealing to a lot of my audience. Because
Yeah, absolutely. I can talk a little bit about that. And even at the end, I can show a specific trip. With those trips, though, they are easygoing by design, and they are about a half day of moderate activity, 2 to 3 hours, and then a half day of more sightseeing, cultural experiences, time to enjoy the hotel. And then, of course, really amazing dining throughout, and you're staying at high-end luxury properties on our premier trips. And so they're definitely great for multi-generation families or grandparents that are traveling, or really just anyone who would like to be on an e-bike, because then you know that everyone will be riding more or less at a similar pace, and you can have a great time together, despite, if one rider's at a slightly higher level than another rider.
okay.
Great. And then we do offer some Dolce Tempo versions of our trips. The trip that I was on was not Dolce Tempo. This was our multi-adventure tour. And from here, you get to explore 2 different countries, which is great on this trip. And going from Croatia, one of the highlights was riding over the border into Montenegro, just with your bike and your passport in your bike bag, and going through, and all of a sudden you're in another country. Really special and beautiful landscapes throughout. So we'll dive into some of the specifics on this one. As you're reading Backroads' website, this is a lot of the information that's available for each trip. We'll always offer a map where you can see the itinerary. Plus, it's nice, you get these charts for specific breakdowns, biking, walking, hiking. We did some kayaking. And then you'll also get a price point as well as the activity levels on the trip. So this trip was a level 2 through 4, and Backroads is all about flexibility. So each day you're offered different activities based on those levels. And so it could be riding or walking. There are normally decision points, so you can decide if you want to keep going, or if not, turn around. And as we covered in our first video, Backroads has an amazing support system with our leaders as well as our band support. And so having our leaders and band support with you throughout really provides a high level of service, and you're able to enjoy the activities, go at your own pace, and you don't feel exhausted at the end of the trip. The group that I was with, it was amazing that at the end of the trip, they felt very refreshed and ready to go, especially ending at a beautiful property in Montenegro, the Regent Porto Montenegro, and a few advisors enjoyed spa treatments, and the spa there was amazing, swimming pool. So you get to treat yourself at the same time as while you're doing activities and having a great riding experience. And then for activity, just some other points to really break down the day-to-day, especially if you've never been on a Backroads trip. What's really nice is when you're at each place, Backroads has trip experts who take a year or more to explore these itineraries. Backroads has been operating in the regions for 25, 30 years. And so you're really getting to see a variety of places that you could put together on your own, but the fact that you're able to go on an itinerary that, it's naturally built in, and the leaders are there to take the stress points off, you get more into the local landscape. And so the island of Topud Island, that was an incredible experience where there's no cars allowed on the road. We took a boat over from the mainland to the island, hiked around. We set up an incredible lunch, got to swim on the island as well, and then back on the boat to the mainland to kind of keep the day moving. And so certain places like that that you just wouldn't normally think of or have easy access to, Backroads really takes care of all the logistics to get you from place to place. We're saving questions for the end.
We can do now. Does anyone have a question?
I think Judy does.
Judy, you might want to unmute.
Maybe not.
Okay, we'll move on.
She could type in if anything.
By the way, if anyone has any questions while we're on this, you can type into the chat or wait to the end. You can unmute and ask then. It doesn't matter. We'll answer throughout.
Okay, great. And then during this itinerary as well, which I particularly really enjoyed, and I think this would work great for families. We offer these trips for families as well with children or anyone interested. The history here is just amazing, especially in the Balkans in general. Croatia is, become very popular over the past couple of years, but there's still, I think, 2-3 years away from being really polished. They're still kind of catching up to the recent tourism, and especially with what they call the war, which was the war in the Balkans in the 90s. For them, still hits very hard, where you're going to Dubrovnik and can see the different areas that were hit and how the people just share their stories. And so going from place to place, you really get a great understanding of the area. And then ending in Montenegro is amazing, because a lot of travelers wouldn't necessarily even think to go there. And so having that option, we also pair Croatia with Slovenia, which is a really nice pairing as well, or you could do Croatia on your own. And so really getting to start in Split and then go through Korčula, the islands, and all the Dalmatian islands, and then Dubrovnik is a special itinerary that guests would really, really enjoy. So we always like to, when we're talking about our trips, just provide, certain sales points, or who is the trip suited for or not. And then we can always pivot, because Backroads does have so many different departures and different trips. There's always options. And so always looking for these kind of notes is great. And we can provide all of our advisors that information, or to guests. And so for this particular trip, you can get an idea of some of the conditions and how it was. So, for those who really are flexible, we were lucky with sunshine throughout, but it can be rainy, on different days. And there's always activity. The leaders usually have a plan B, but it's good for flexible travelers. And because you're going from, usually there's 3 different hotels on a trip. And so this trip was 1 night, 2 nights, 2 nights. And so you also have to be comfortable with, moving around a little bit. And Backroads makes it seamless, where you leave your luggage outside of your door in the morning, and then it's arriving at the next hotel for you. You don't have to, take care of that or anything. And for a lot of our biking trips, wider roads, especially in Europe, can be harder to come by. And so being comfortable, having some riding experience, the e-bikes definitely help. But there are some areas, especially in the US, where the roads are wider, but places in Europe, they may look like a 1-lane road, but really they're for 2 cars. And so you always have to have your wits about you. Take a sip of water quick.
No problem. I do have a question, since you're if it's raining and you plan an adventure trip, whether it's biking or hiking, and it's raining, do you have to pack like a rain suit or rain jackets to be prepared for that? Or do they zig and zag something indoors, or how does that work?
They zig and zag. Backroads, the leaders always recommend a rain layer, and that can just be, a kind of a throw over or like a smaller jacket, some even that you can fold up and just leave in your trunk bag. Usually having something like that helps, especially if you're a little bit more sensitive to it. But some of the days, if it is raining and you get wet, that's okay. If it becomes very slippery, then they'll look to pivot to either a museum or something local that's open, that the guests can equally enjoy while they wait out some of the rain.
Right, okay.
And what's really nice on our Ama River cruises, which we do, is that all of the Ama activities are also available. So if you're doing a Backroads Ama trip and there happens to be weather along that route, then all of the Ama activities are available for you as well. So that
Yeah.
makes a really good pairing.
Right, and for people who don't know who AMA is, it's a river cruise in Europe. So you pair activities with river cruising.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
We run our trips off their ship, which is amazing.
Right.
And a lot of perks there. And then one thing to highlight, and you can see the slide up for our private trips. We're really promoting this as a great way for groups to travel. If there's a future date on the Backroads calendar where nobody's enrolled, you can come in with your group and buy that date out. The pricing is based on the number of people that you can get on the trip, and usually the better the pricing, the more guests you have. Though there's no minimum, so it doesn't matter if you only have 6 or 8. You would still be getting the full Backroads experience, so you would just be paying a higher premium if it was just 6 people as opposed to 15. Then the per person pricing will be lower. But these are really great. You still have all of our leaders, the van support, the itinerary as your own. We don't do tailor-made or custom trips, and so you would be following essentially the itinerary as is, though if you familiar with the area or someone's been to a specific restaurant or wants to see something that Backroads can accommodate, we'll definitely, look for those requests as well. All right, so we've answered a few questions along the way. Before I transfer over to our website, and any other questions?
Don't be shy. If anybody has any questions, just type them in or unmute yourself. Okay. No questions.
Good. We'll keep going. So now I've pulled up what I'd like to take the next few minutes to go over is several of the trips that group well together for this coming fall, and ones that I've been talking with guests about recently, and you see some amazing comparisons and kind of just contrast with these trips. And so the first one being our Sonoma wine country trip. This is one that's out in California. I've also done this as well. And what's nice is that for this trip, it's a weekend getaway. We do offer this trip in a full week format, like a standard Backroads trip, but we offer this one as a 2-night, 3-day trip. And you can see it's a lower price point. And what's great is that it's if you don't have the time for a full trip, this is an option. Or if you want to try Backroads for the first time, the weekend getaways, you're only committed for a few days, you can get a feel for it. And then a lot of guests, not surprisingly, want to then go further afield to Croatia or Italy or other places with Backroads where we run our trips. But this is definitely a great option. And here you can see on our site where the trip starts and ends, and a map to really understand the area. And then, let's see if I can get over here. There we go.
You guys have some amazing photos. Those images are beautiful. One of the image behind me, I picked today because I wanted people to see what's in store for them after they go on an active Dolce Tempo or a biking or hiking. It's always the bonus round of meals, and you're sharing your meals with everybody on your tour. You're making friends. It's like-minded people that you're signing up with, and you're going to walk away from this meeting new people and becoming friends and signing up for other tours. That's what's happened to my clients in the past. So it's quite amazing. Go
Well
ahead.
said. Well
Yeah.
said. Yes. After every day, breakfast, lunch, dinner, there's incredible food waiting for you. Michelin star, farm to table, meeting with local families or farmhouses. It's all about those fine touches, and definitely, that is a huge value that Backroads brings to the trip. And you're also, what's nice is a lot of that food is included, and so you're not worrying about who's going to be taking care of the bill or how is it going to be paid for. You're there to enjoy, to take it all in, and leave happy. So that's a great aspect.
Great thing is you start the journey not knowing anyone, and you leave the journey, whether it be 2 nights later, 4 nights later, it doesn't matter. You leave making friends.
Exactly.
It's heartwarming. So go ahead.
Great. And you can see here, most of our trips, they're going to be between 15 and 20 guests. They can run a little smaller or up to 26 on some trips, but generally you're getting about 15 other guests. And for that weekend trip, we're in Sonoma. We do have a full week version as well that actually includes a bit more of Napa. So guests love this trip. This is going to be our typical 5-night, 6-day trip. And then you can see the activity levels. And what's interesting as I go through all of the trips that I'm about to cover, the different difficulty levels, because people could think that they're similar, and that's the Napa Sonoma, also our Martha Vineyard and Nantucket cycling tour, and then our main Acadia tour. These are 3 great tours in the US that a lot of people like to look at. And it's important to note that in this wine area, especially California and Maine, they are a lot hillier, where our Nantucket trip is going to be a slightly easier trip just because the area is generally flat. So there's not as much elevation changes. So, when you're looking at a backroads trip, those are some of the finer details that you want to look at. And that is available on our website, where when you scroll down, you'll be able to see some different information. We normally have the activity levels, and you can see each day what is going to be or what's to be expected. So when you meet with the leaders at the start of each day, day 1, day 2, day 3, they'll go over what this looks like. They'll help you, understand, get ready. And then as you go, you're supported. We call our trips supported, not guided. So that the leaders are there to really support you through the day and the experiences, but it's not a follow the leader type trip where you're trying to keep up with everybody or have to stop at the same time. You get to go at your own pace and really enjoy. It's always important to keep in mind.
That's nice. That's a nice touch.
Yeah, and a lot of times, you may get to a certain point of the ride and the leaders are there. You can jump in the shuttle, get a ride back, or they may say today there's, the start of the ride is a big elevation. Those who want to ride it can. Otherwise, we'll drive up to the top, and then, you can get out there and go the rest of the way. And then, that are other aspects of how the leaders can work with guests to make sure that they're getting the best for them.
Right.
So for Napa Sonoma, it's generally a more of a hilly landscape, and you can see here the hotels that we stay. We rate our hotels by Premier, Casual Plus, or Casual. And a lot of that times it depends on what amenities the hotel has, especially spas, pools, maybe a restaurant on site. But the hotels are curated and always the preferred option in the area. So then for Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket, you can see here, this is a 4-night, 5-day trip, and it's an activity level 1 through 3. And so for this trip, you get an idea, there's definitely going to be more time on boating. That way you're going between the 2 different islands, you're riding the islands, and beautiful sights, amazing hotels for this trip as well. And then one thing to point out before I go over it, if you're looking at 2024 dates and you see also available for private, that means that this trip you can take over for your private group. And that's a good way to see what's available. If it doesn't show that, that means guests are already enrolled on a trip.
And how many do you, what's the max of number of people?
For biking, it's 26.
Okay.
And then for walking, hiking, and multi-adventure, it's 20.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you're normally getting about between 15 and 20.
And activity level, some of them are 1 through 3, some are like 3, 4, and 5. What's the scale? What's the max of the scale? 5?
5 is the max.
Okay,
Yeah.
so 5 is the most challenging.
And that's areas like Mallorca. I think we have a Canadian Rockies trip.
Yeah,
That's harder. And a lot of that will have to do with elevation changes and the length as well. But if you're not really having to go up and down, which on Nantucket you could see some of these lower elevations,
yeah.
then it makes the riding easier, more
So you've
enjoyable.
got level 1, so that's pretty good. That's good to know.
Yeah. And all of the trips are like that. And then Maine, which I was fortunate to do this trip last October with the foliage, was absolutely gorgeous. This is going to be a 2 to 4. And I think a couple of the days there's even a level 5. And because Maine in general is very hilly. And so to do a lot of the riding, you have to be relatively conditioned to enjoy. The e-bikes definitely help. They're available. And so, for those guests, you can take part. Otherwise, the performance bike would be a good option for a trip like this.
And if you sign up for something and it's like 3 through 5, and you feel you're at a 3, if parts of it is a 5, then get off and go on the motor van with you don't call them guides, you call them support teams. So you can get
Yeah,
off.
our trip leaders.
Yeah, you can go off and on as you wish throughout the entire. So let's just say you want to go to Maine. That's the destination you want to see, but there's a bit of it that's a 5 and you don't think you can handle it, then you can go with the support team in the car for that little bit.
Yep, exactly. And our trip leaders really are the ones who make the trip for the guests, essentially, because they're there to support every step of the way and make sure that guests are having a great time. And like you said earlier, you're starting off on a trip with strangers, but by the end you're leaving with friends. And it really is true because of some of the amazing experiences. And what's nice with Backroads, they do leave a lot of on your own time. So a few hours before dinner to go to your room and relax or book a spa treatment, or there are certain 1 or 2 meals are normally on your own. So that would be, where you have the ability to go into Dubrovnik and have a really nice meal with just your spouse or your family. And of course, if you met other people on the trip that you want to join for those meals as well, you can, but there are opportunities to go off on your own. And those are out of pocket for guests. I think it's important to note, but a lot of times guests really like that and don't necessarily mind.
Yeah.
And so here for Maine, you can see, a 40-mile ride with 3,500 feet of gain. None of the other trips, had that in height. So not that you have to do it, because of course on day 2, for instance, there is a level 1, but it's, for those who do really enjoy riding and want to get out there, you have the option to do so. So these work really well for, people who really love cycling and that's their passion, and those who, just want to have a nice time, be active, explore a country in a unique way, and, experience the finer things they can as well. All right. And so bike tours only. No, this isn't bike tours only. Thanks, Anne, for answering the question. I've just been talking specifically about bikes. When I started the presentation, I was talking about one of our multi-adventure trips, and the multi-adventure trips are a hybrid trip. So I'll pull up one of those very quickly.
So they have multi-adventure and Dolce Tempo. Dolce Tempo, explain that the best way you can again.
Of course, and I'll highlight that. So these are our easygoing active tours, and we offer these in a wide range of areas, and they are built to be flatter footing, easier routes with a very strong historical, educational, food, wine, beautiful hotels, and really bring those highlights to the itinerary. And guests really love these. We have them for our walking trips as well. And guests really love these because it's a slightly easier pace, good for a diverse group of people, and still getting to see places in an amazing way.
So, and Backroads offers mainly walking, hiking, biking, and the Dolce Tempo is a combination, incorporating food, wine, and museum sightseeing. And it's more of a leisure, go at your own pace kind of thing.
Exactly.
And like Lee said, the multi-adventure is a combo of biking, hiking, walking. So it's
And then
just
here's a great example for our walking trips, which is another very fast growing segment for us, is you have our Taste of Camino de Santiago, a very popular trip we offer, especially logistically, Backroads taking care of all of that for guests. We also offer a Dolce Tempo version of that. So that might be a little bit more shuttling, maybe shorter walks, easier parts of the path, but it's still including the amazing hotels and experiences that a typical departure would have.
great.
And that's a good example, as well as there are many. See, you have Alaska as well, where we have a regular version and then we have a Dolce Tempo version of a trip as well, because it does apply to all different of our trip types.
And your destinations are all over the world, every continent. Am I right?
Yeah, 6 continents, I believe.
All over the world, including USA, Canada. Do you have anything in Mexico? You've got Mexico.
I don't believe we have anything in Mexico.
I know you're
No.
really popular in Costa Rica.
Yes, we have a Costa Rica trip, a Belize, Guatemala trip, and then trips in Colombia as well.
Great.
And okay, one last thing to cover was our detailed trip planner. And this is a great tool for all of our trips that you can actually request here on the side. So I know our website has a lot of detail on it already. There's actually more detail for those that really want to get into it. And advisors are great because you can help guests digest a lot of this information, working with the logistics. You would essentially click detailed itinerary. And what that's going to do is it's going to open a link that you can to have this.
I was reading Ann's comment. This is actually Tony, any tours by tour buses. That would probably be another Travel Tuesdays with Teresa. You might want to go into the video log on our YouTube page or in the Neighbor Network to go back into the history. You're new to the travel group, so we've done group travel. We did small group journeys like a month or two ago, and if you email me, I will give you my email address. If you email me, I'll send you the links to where you can go back into the past. And coming up in the future, we are going to have some bus tours or independent tours, not by bus, but by private chauffeur and private sprinters. But this particular Travel Tuesdays with Teresa is more active travel, which is biking, hiking, and walking. But we've done others in the past you might be interested in, and we're going to be doing others in the future you might be interested in. And 55 or older. I also live in a 55 or older community too. So I understand what you're doing and what you're looking for, but you can do a 55 or older active travel. Just sign up for the Dolce Tempo version.
Yeah, a lot of our average age guests for even some of our regular trips is between 55 and 65. And so there is a a great window there, and a lot of guests are able to enjoy because of all the support. There is shuttling from time to time, and we have our Sprinter vans. Sometimes you may ride in a slightly larger bus, but it's not the traditional one where you're really just using that to get from point A to B and then starting your activity or your meal or something like that.
So Lee, I want to explain to the audience of if they went to backroads.com to check out the website, to check out all the offerings that you guys have. If someone wanted to book it and went straight to backroads.com, you guys only book your tours. You don't book the flights. You don't book any pre or post. Pre meaning wonder if you wanted to stay in the city 3 or 4 days extra before the tour. Wonder if you wanted to stay in the city that they in 2 or 3 days after. Backroads doesn't do any of that. You would really need to work with a travel advisor, whether you have your own favorite
Exactly.
advisor that you're working with, or you can reach out to me. I will piece everything together for your flight, your transfer, your pre, your post, your insurance, everything. So I will do the whole enchilada. Whereas if you reached out to Backroads, you're only booking one part of your vacation. And then the rest of the parts you're going to need to follow through on. So
Exactly.
I just wanted to make that as a comment. Do you have any others you
Yeah.
could?
Yeah, I'm going to show one more. I'm going to pull up our trip itinerary here, and I was about to earlier, and then the window closed. But this is a great resource that I recommend all guests to look through. Hopefully this go ahead and loads. But for all guests to go through, as it has amazing logistics and a real day-by-day breakdown of the trip.
Okay.
I'm going to open a different one.
I am answering Anne's email, Anne's question. Are there any tours to Europe that include UK, Paris, and Rome? I'm going to take the assumption you're talking about active travel Backroads. So Lee, you want to answer that?
Yeah, we do not have a trip that includes all of those. We have trips in the UK and Scotland. We also have trips in Italy and France, but nothing that combines those in an itinerary. The closest thing we would have to that is we do trips in Austria and Germany. We also have trips that go through, as I mentioned earlier, Croatia, Montenegro, a Corsica, Sardinia trip, and then a trip in the Alps as well that covers a couple different countries.
As a travel advisor, and what you could do is do a hiking or a biking or a walking trip to Paris, for an example. I'm just giving you an example, to Paris, and start your trip in the UK, not with Backroads, unless we can piece something together like a walking trip to the UK with Backroads and piece it like 3 or 4 days later to France. But what you could do is do a active travel in France, and you can do a pre-stay in London or UK, wherever in the UK, and do a post-stay in Rome. So, but you would not book directly with Backroads to do that because they don't do that. I would do that for you. I would do your pre and post day. And what we would try to do is piece different things together if you're wanting active travel, which is what you're watching today. If you don't want active travel, then you and I can have a discussion and we'll create the vacation you want, because I can do. So.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
And that is a huge benefit and highlight to the experience. And a lot of times our trips as well start the morning of the first day. So it may be a 6 a.m. meetup time or an 8 a.m. meetup time or 9 a.m. So guests, I would always say to get in at least one day before, sometimes 2 or 3, especially if there's time differences and there's flight delays, things that may just be out of your hand. But the trips do start the morning of the first day. So usually good to get there at least one night before, so that way you can make sure you're there and in.
Right.
And then on our trip planner, so as I've been scrolling through just while we're talking, here you could see really a full rundown of the routes that are available, a full breakdown of each day, so you know what you're going to be seeing, what you're going to be doing. And it will also highlight any shuttle time that may be built into the trip, or time on boating, etc. So this is a great resource to, have a read through. And then especially towards the end, it will highlight the hotels, and then also where the trip starts and where the trip ends. And then that way you can work with your advisor to essentially build the trip from there. You can see here this particular trip, 10 a.m. At the Avignon train station. So you would essentially meet there, the trip gets together, and then goes off as a group. Sometimes they meet at hotels, most often I would say at hotels, but occasionally you may meet at a port or a pier or a train station to start the trip. So you could stay at a hotel, nearby, around the corner, something
Yeah.
close, knowing that. And towards the end of these planners, what's really good is there are recommendations on places to stay that you could potentially look at. And as an advisor, of course, you may have preferred partners, but these are really great recommendations as well.
Great. Lots of information, lots of good information.
Yeah, tells you how to help pack, if you need to bring any gear, what Backroads provides for you, which a lot of, if anything for biking, safety gear is provided. And then, yeah, so these are always good, whenever you think you may have questions, hotel recommendations, and even a suggested packing list.
Awesome. That's great. So does anyone else have any questions before we wrap up? Because we're happy to answer. So while we're doing that, if you didn't see part one, I'm gonna post the link to part one, because these two series goes together. I'll post the link to part one in the YouTube channel below, and my contact information. If you have any questions or information, you can contact me. But I appreciate you taking the time, Lee, again.
Of course.
And I appreciate everyone who attended. So
Yeah, thank you so much. I know we covered a lot today,
we
but it's great
did.
to chat with you and talk with everyone out there. Things are very exciting. There's a lot of amazing places to go, and we would really love to work with everybody to, have you experience active travel.
Awesome. Well, I always end the show by saying, if you learn something, that's great, but the purpose of this show is to educate you and show you travel trends and inspire you to get out of your comfort zone. And I hope we did that today. And I look forward to answering any questions anyone would have. So I'm going to leave my contact below, but I appreciate you joining today. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank
All right.
you.